This has got to be one of the most impressive wins of the season by the Clippers. The Clippers go into the game last night against the Nuggets, and they not only didn't look like they had the energy, but it just looked like they were playing against a team that was coached a whole lot better, a well coached team, better than the Clippers were, or at least that's the way it seemed anyway. Because when you looked at the game, Jokic was just dominating, doing what he wanted to do, making good passes, especially in the early part of the game. And he knocked down some threes like he always does, gets in the paint, uses his footwork, unlike any other big man in the league. And it was really just, it just really started to look like the game was just really in the Nuggets' hands the whole game. The Nuggets just seized control of the game, especially when they got like 24, 25 points. And, the Clippers really were just not only depleted, but, the only bright spot they had in the beginning of the game where it looked was Amir Coffey. And actually, the way he's been, kind of contributing here lately, the last couple of games, he's somebody that Ty Lue has kind of found a liking to. Somebody that Ty Lue has kind of looked at and said, hey, this kid can ball. This kid can really, go out there and play with the fearlessness that I need all my players to play with. I mean, he almost plays just as fearless or more fearless than Brandon Boston. And, if he keeps playing the way he's playing, it's very possible he could take some minutes away from Brandon Boston. I mean, I don't believe that's going to happen because I feel like Ty Lue likes Brandon Boston a lot. And I feel like he's always going to make room for that kid, especially. But Brandon Boston only played like 20 minutes and Amir Coffey played like 43 minutes that game. So, when you look at that, it's like, who does Ty Lue trust more, or who does he feel like have that more of that go-getter mentality, like going out there to just make something happen mentality? And maybe he feels that way about Amir Coffey, or at least the last couple games. I can see why he would feel that way, because he had the 21-point game, against Atlanta. And this game, they had the 25-point comeback against a team like Denver with the MVP, the reigning MVP on the floor in Jokic, and you come back and win that game. That's very, very impressive with none of your big guns out there. And, and really the crazy thing is nobody really contributed really at a high level. I mean, Terrence Mann and Reggie Jackson, I think they had 13 points apiece. And I think Marcus Morris had like 12 points. But Amir Coffey had 18. He was the leading scorer on the team for a second straight game. And, that's really weird to say, because you would think with the other talent they have out there, it would be a little bit different. Maybe they have more scoring from somebody else. But, as I said before, Terrence Mann, I expected a lot more out of him this season. I haven't seen it. Me personally, I haven't seen his growth the way I thought I would this season. Luke Kennard hasn't been there for a little while, but I definitely thought that would be a game for Marcus Morris to come out, having a breakout party in a game like that, but he didn't. And there again, like I said, once again, Amir Coffey is the leading scorer, on the team, and for a second straight game. And I just feel like that's somebody that Ty Lue is starting to, find a little bit of trust in regards to, letting him go out there and take and make big shots, because he definitely made some big shots, and he definitely, especially if you looked at the beginning of the game, he had that fearless mentality, like, he played almost like he was the number one guy, like he had the green light over everybody. And that's the type of mentality you want your young players to have, because it makes them more aggressive and it makes them go out there and play with more confidence if they play fearlessly. And that's what we saw out of Terrence Mann last year coming into this year. So hopefully Terrence Mann picks it up more, because I'm telling you, if they're gonna try to continue to win without their big guns until they come back, they need contributions from people like Terrence Mann, because he's one of those players that a lot of people looked at last year from the playoffs coming into this year to be a breakout star this year. So, he's definitely one player I've been keeping eyes on, but I haven't seen the progression just yet, but maybe it'll come. But, shout out to Amir Coffey. That was a big game for him, another, leading scorer game for him. And hopefully that boosts his confidence. And, shout out to the Clippers. I mean, that was definitely a really, really impressive win. I almost might say it's more impressive than the win against the Brooklyn Nets, because when you look at it, them being down like that and not having nobody over 20 points on your roster, you had to basically do it, like I said, by committee, and you found a way to get it done against a team like Denver, who has their MVP caliber player. They may not have Jamal Murray, but you still have the reigning MVP on your roster, and you still have knockdown shooters out there. And, then plus they have Aaron Gordon too, so it's not like they have like no talent or anything like that on the floor, and you found a way to come back and beat them without your main players. And hell, you found a way to beat them without some of your core players. I mean, Zubac only gave you 2 points, even though he only played 10 minutes, but the 10 minutes he was out there, he just looked, he looked lost. I mean, the ball caromed and ricocheted off his head once or twice. I think Marcus Morris tried to throw him a pass and it ricocheted off his head. He just looked like a big Dumbo out there, for a while. And I just think Ty Lue got sick of it and just pulled him and said, hey, you're not ready yet, or maybe the COVID is affecting you too much, because I know he just came off of COVID not too long ago, so maybe that affected him, but he really wasn't a non-factor. Serge Ibaka, he really was a non-factor to a degree. It's like, I'm telling you, it's like they really won this game by committee, and it really shows once again how resilient this team is. I mean, it's crazy. When their back is against the wall, that's where they play their best. It's almost like they prefer their backs being against the wall, because it's almost like that's the only way you're going to get the best out the Clippers. If the Clippers have a number 2 seed, number 3 seed, they play lackadaisical. But if they're number 7 or 8 seed and they're missing all their superstars, they find ways to get wins against teams that there's no way in the world you would think that should happen. Because the last 2 games, honestly, they shouldn't have beat Atlanta, because they don't have anybody. If you look at their roster compared to, Atlanta's roster, or you look at their roster compared to the Denver Nuggets. Now, of course, the Clippers have the deeper team between both of those teams, but they don't have the star power, the star players. And when, Atlanta has Trae Young, Denver has the reigning MVP in Jokic. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, when you look at the star power they have along with their role players, there's no way the Clippers should come out on top. But they've done that because there again, you got to give Ty Lue some credit. Ty Lue just finds a way to get his players in the right position. He finds a way to get his players in the best position to pull, he pulls the right strings or push the right buttons on his players to get the maximum out of them. And that's what I appreciate about Ty Lue so much, because not a lot of coaches really know how to do that. A lot of coaches know how to coach X's and O's and give you schemes and come up with plays, but the plays and all those things only work when the superstar players are on the floor. They don't seem to work or have any type of effect unless the superstar players are there to make up for any miscues you might have on the floor or anything like that. So when you think about that and the way he actually can keep this train going, even though he doesn't have his 2 superstars, that should let you know right there how dangerous this team could be going into the playoffs. It really should, because if they're beating teams without Kawhi and PG and without some of their core players some nights due to COVID, I mean, that just tells you how deep this team is. That tells you how good this team really can be. So that's why I said in my previous videos, the Clippers don't fear any team in the West, and they shouldn't, because when they look at every other team in the West, they match up really well against every other team. Because if you look at the Clippers, they got the most depth on their team, but they also got the most versatility on their team. If I made a starting lineup for the Clippers and I had Kawhi, PG, Nicholas Batum, Reggie Jackson, and Serge Ibaka. If all of them are healthy, I mean, that's a very versatile lineup, because 4 of the players I just named, besides Reggie Jackson, 4 of them could play both ends of the floor. Kawhi, PG, Serge and them, right? I mean, that's 4 players that can play, both ends of the floor. And then you throw Marcus Morris in there, of course, he can play both ends of the floor. He's a 2-way player, or he has versatility in being a 2-way player. So when you look at their versatility, if they're healthy, a lot of teams are not going to be able to contend with them, because they really don't know how to attack the Clippers, because they have so much depth and their starters are so versatile on both ends of the floor. It's really, really hard to beat them. They'll really be a tough out for any team going against them in a 7-game series because you really just don't know where it's coming from. Of course, Kawhi and PG is going to do their thing scoring, but the third scorer could be Marcus Morris. It could be Reggie Jackson's night. Hell, it could even be Luke Kennard's night coming off the bench. You know what I'm saying? So, or Terrence Mann if he gets a breakout game going. So, well, hell, now you can throw Amir Coffey or Brandon Boston in there. So this is what I'm saying. They can get scoring from a multitude of areas, a multitude of ways, but if they're healthy, they have defense from a multitude of guys on the floor. And like I said, to me, the most unique weapon they have, underrated weapon, is Nicholas Batum. That's why I said when Batum is healthy, they just play much better as a team and they win more because of his versatility. He can guard position 1 through 5, and there's no doubt that he can when he's healthy. And then you got Kawhi and PG. It's just they're going to be a handful for anybody in the West coming out the West. Last night's win really should tell you that because, like I said, there's no way they should have beat a team like the Nuggets who have the reigning MVP on the floor. And you're up by 25, and this team doesn't have neither one of their stars, and they're playing with a bunch of role players, secondary players that don't even come off the bench on most teams in the NBA. Like Amir Coffey, shout out to him. I mean, I really like what he's been doing, but for most teams, he wouldn't even be coming off the bench. He would probably be a guy that's sitting there, making some poses or doing some mascot type stuff. When somebody else scores on the court, and the camera shines on him for a second because he's up there doing a crazy dance or something like that because somebody got dunked on or something like that. He would be one of those type players on a lot of other teams probably, but for the Clippers, he's actually giving a good contribution, actually helping this team win. The last 2 games he's been leading scorer. He's been big part of the reason why he's logged in a lot of minutes, and the coach Ty Lue trusts what he can give and as far as his output. So that's definitely a big thing, definitely a big win for the Clippers, and I definitely hopefully they take this win and definitely use it in a positive way going forward, because if they can win 2 games back to back and they beat the Brooklyn Nets, well, this has been a good 2022 year for the Clippers so far, because they've gotten 3 big wins without their big guns, and most people probably would have thought they would have faded or tanked, but they haven't. They're still showing resiliency, they're still showing fight, and they're still showing that grit, and that's what you need out of your team. And I'm telling you, the more and more these young guys on the Clippers get that experience of going in there and playing with that confidence, when the playoffs come, when you get Kawhi and PG back, and now you could throw one of them young guys in there, now other teams don't really have an answer because they don't know about Brandon Boston and the other players, but they will know about them because them coming in the game playing with confidence the way they can with the Amir Coffeys and Brandon Bostons, and hey, when they get Jay Scrubb and all these other players, the Clippers really going to have a lot of depth. And then you still got to add Terrence Mann and Luke Kennard coming off the bench, so their depth has got even. See, to me, it seems like their depth has gotten even bigger or wider now than what it was last year, even better than what it was last year. When you look at the way Amir Coffey's playing, the way Brandon Boston can play, so their depth has gotten even better now. So now teams are really going to have to watch out. And like I said, if they grow more confidence, which they will due to injury of other core players, their team could really, really be dangerous, and they really, really could be a tough out. But hey, that's my take on the situation. You leave any comments in the comment section. Let me know what you think as always. And hey, Cali out.